Welcome to Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. Each week, our hosts will be interviewing local, regional, and national business leaders to give you an inside peek into how they lead their business to success in the ever-competitive business climate.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Monday Morning Coffee with Inside the Firm. I'm your host, Lindsay Pritchard Fox, and today with me is Maha and David Harper, co-founders of Atlas London. And Maha and David are focused on unlocking the power of connected construction data. Welcome, Maha and David. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Lindsay. Thanks for having us.
And you guys are in the UK, so we're going to hope that we have a really good signal. But we'll turn the screens up if we don't.
So far, so good.
The weather's good.
Yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit about your background in construction and how you're connecting construction data.
Well, I've been building hospitals now for about 20 years. So I started off at the UCL in London working on the internal fit-out package, and then sort of gradually worked my way up from, project coordinator to project manager to project director and then to client representative. So I've worked on, I think, about 14 different hospitals now. And these are, anything from sort of ward refurbs to, 1,400 bedders, big hospitals. I come from a project management background. I've got a master's degree in project management I got from the University of Westminster. And this has been my life, building hospitals essentially all around the world. I worked in the UK, I've worked in the Middle East as well, and Africa. So I kind of, I've been around a bit. So that's my story, building hospitals.
David's very modest. He's, I think I always say to everybody that our secret weapon is really David, because, you can build, the greatest, sexiest tech in the world that's out there. And, there's a lot of stuff that's being built that is wonderful and, very attractive, nice tech. But if you don't really understand what it is that the customer wants and how it will be adopted by the customer and whether it's going to be adopted by the customer, then you're just really building, you're building great tech. You're not building that must-have solution for customers. And I think that's really our secret sauce is David, because, he understands, what will be adopted in this industry, what is attractive to customers. And I think that is a big plus for us, which we're, pretty lucky to have that. I'm the boring part of the duo. I've got my background. I'm a lawyer. I've got a business and corporate background. I spent the last 20 plus years doing corporate transactions, M&A, a lot of real estate transactions. So I do know the real estate environment very well. A lot of cross-border stuff, international. Spent 10 years in-house and then was general counsel for variety of different outfits, family offices, and a publicly listed company as well. So we have very different skill sets.
Well, and so we became friends, I would say, back in the fall of 2020. And I saw a snippet of your tech, which is amazing. So Atlas London, if you guys could tell us a little bit about that, because I don't want to skip over actually how awesome that is and why you're on today, is to kind of say this is really happening in construction and it's like almost here.
Well,
3, 2, 1.
Okay, yeah, he always makes me do this part. All right, so just to try and give you a quick overview, because I do talk a lot. So we started Atlas for really a number of reasons, so our industry experience in healthcare construction was obviously, one of them, but we also realized that by pioneering this sort of what we call a newer method of delivering hospitals and medical facilities, we were really helping to deepen the reach of healthcare services around the world. And given that 50% of the population, of the world's population, don't have access to healthcare services, there seemed to be a real, need for that. And, adding on to that, the fact that no one else in healthcare construction in particular was really providing that integrated solution for the delivery of hospitals also went a really long way in, validating what it is that we were doing. So I guess the easiest way to explain it is our software, our platform, really provides what we call the levers of control. This is David's thing that he always says. It provides the levers of control that monitors and tracks the flow of data on a construction project, and as well as providing that environment for integrating the design and the delivery and the supply chain. And so we always say, we call it sort of the glue and the translation layer that enables that really seamless integration and communication between all the different software stacks. And the key point really is, the translation. So we've developed a very smart architecture to deal with that enables the software stacks. It's not only that handshake, but enables them to speak the same language, essentially.
Well, yeah, I mean, so I've been to Autodesk University for a number of years. The first year I went was 2018. And the general theme, my informal theme, was we should have BIM, Building Information Modeling. And then I went in 2019 and it was, okay, so we have BIM, now what do we do with it? And where I really kind of was astounded by what the Atlas London was doing was saying, you have these very complicated structures that need to come together. And in an ideal scenario, you're providing healthcare to areas of the world that do not have access to healthcare. And generally, building in those environments is very difficult. So you take a very difficult type of structure, a very needed structure, and you're building in a challenging, on a challenging site. So having this platform meant that you were kind of integrating all the cool things I was seeing in, wouldn't it be cool if we had in the Autodesk university world, which is, let's say, with generative design, mobile applications, transferring of information seamlessly from, the design team to the project field team. And what I thought was so cool when we first met was that David had built these structures without these tools.
Yeah.
And knew firsthand. And I think we all, we kind of had a laugh of like the horror stories that exist in the manifestation of these structures, and how important that getting them right really is. So the Atlas platform is leveraging all these really great tools and innovations in a very complex environment.
That's the idea.
It is. Yeah. If you think about the most difficult buildings that you can possibly build, and you're looking at nuclear power stations, for instance, where the safety element is just off the chart. Military bases, another one, but certainly in the sort of, in the civilian context, it would be hospitals, because it's a critical environment. You go to hospital to get better, you go there to everything is sort of built around a positive outcome, and everything's very highly regulated. So if you go into an operating theater or a treatment room, the devices, the systems, the components, their sort of relationship to each other, how many of each of them there needs to be, the circuits they're plugged into, all of this is very regulated. It's determined by standards, essentially. And it's all built around people. And we haven't changed in the last, 200 years. We've got slightly bigger, so the corridors in the hospitals have got slightly bigger, but we haven't, So it's the proximity of these devices to the patient that supports the care models and supports a positive outcome. So it's, it shares a lot in common with other building types, but when it comes to technology and when it comes to the sort of critical nature of it, if something fails, something could go badly wrong, someone, might not have the outcome that they wanted. In that context, you have to be really, really on the ball when you're building hospitals. But the thing is that people have got used to now, okay, you get a budget for a hospital and people expect it to go over by 40%. This is just you're building a hospital, fine, it's going to take 3 or 4 years longer than, the program, that we agreed on, and it's going to cost X amount. And this is putting off, especially in developing countries where this is really, really badly needed, that the healthcare infrastructure is on its knees in many of these places. People are looking for time and cost certainty. They're looking for a solution that is well thought out, where, if they put the money in and they support and they invest in that, they're going to have a positive outcome, and they're going to affect the lives of many people positively. So that's really what we're trying to do, is put four corners around the time and cost as much as we can. And in order to do that, you have to have the digital strings attached. You have to have a very, very clever system that hooks everything together and makes it much easier to deliver these complex buildings.
And it's not to say that using our platform is going to eliminate all the problems that normally happen on a when you are trying to build a complex structure like this. But the idea is to give that component level of visibility to the project team or the project owner that will enable them to identify risk at the earliest stage and manage those risks as soon as possible. And I think our solution is a very, very, our platform is a very, very good solution for that.
I mean, yeah, like you can't go into these environments without predictive measures, getting supplies to you can talk about the locations that you're hoping to have these facilities built in. Like, it's not like, just call up Home Depot, get some 2x4 sent over. That air handling system, it's on a shipping container that gets stuck in the Suez Canal. Like, that's
exactly.
We have to be able to mitigate those challenges in order for this to really find success. And I think that's where you guys have really put a lot of your energy.
Yeah, and modularizing as well. You can't just sort of phone up, like you say, and get an O2 depletion system like that, or get someone to braze your medical gases. You can't do that, in many of these environments. So it's about modularizing as much as you can. And the real complexity in a hospital, really, when it comes down to it, when you walk through the corridors and the rooms in a hospital, you're seeing lots of flashing lights and lots of devices. But the real complexity of what happens above the ceiling and how that's coordinated and how that is put together, being able to zone systems, to valve them off, to have a way of delivering the building, but also to operate it effectively. So if something does go wrong, you can isolate the system, you can take corrective action. So there's a lot of thought that goes in right at the beginning when you're, and the client needs to know what they want as well. The operator needs to be able to tell you, listen, this is what we're using the hospital for.
Yes.
And that's your stake in the ground.
That's the thing I will say all day till I'm blue in the face, that visualization is underrepresented or undervalued in the construction industry. I would say mostly because if you had two separate sources of here's your construction documents and here's your visualization source, there was no accountability built in. You could draw pretty pictures of what you wanted the room to be, but there was a disconnect on accountability to actually have it manifest that way. And especially, I would say, in those facilities that have those complex systems that are hidden behind the ceiling tiles, all of that is underrepresented. And to have a platform that's mobile friendly, that can be on the construction site, that can assist in driving that facility coming together piece by piece, is so powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think you and David are definitely on the same page when it comes to visualization, because you really always talk about that.
Well, it's kind of, otherwise, if you can't visualize it in a way that builders can utilize it and really sort of use that to inform their work, then it's just words on a page, or it's an abstraction of what should actually be there. And, one of the main frustrations, you have this a lot in your world as well, is that the design, a lot of the information and a lot of the richness in the data exists within the sort of design silo, if you will. And it's getting that across the various other, functions, your commercial function, your installers, your commissioning engineers and so on, and getting it across in such a way that they don't have to sort of wade through sub-menus and drop menus and get frustrated and go back to the project office and half a day's gone. They've got it there in the palm of their hand. And soon we'll get to a point where, if you have a mesh network in place, then the system will know where you are. It will know what package you're working on. It will know what area you're working on. It will be able to bring that information to you without you having to spend too much time looking for it. I believe in a few years' time that's the sort of one of the logical steps where BIM is going. So it's, we're taking account of all that. And it's logical at the end of the day. This isn't sort of pie in the sky. It's logical. It's very hard work, especially when you get down to the sort of file exchange formats and the minutiae of it. But it's doable.
Yeah.
So we're doing it.
Right. Well, one of the best conversations that ever go on in our office are conversations between David and our CTO. They're brilliant, right? Because, and I sometimes, I like to just sort of come in and listen, to what they're saying, because, David's got sort of his very sort of, his project experience. He understands, of course, the tech and, data and all of that, but his big experience, of course, is, the largest experience he has is on the project side. And then we have our CTO, who's the real techie. And then sort of the marrying of those two brains is really beautiful. I love it.
Well, it is. And I've talked about this with Vicki Reynolds, who is also in the UK. And it was the difference between digitization and digitalization. It's not just creating a digital platform that is mimicking your analog sheets. So the example is if you have construction documents that are on a piece of paper and now you have a PDF of that document. But if you're trying to run a project through that and try and run all of the facility and the utility and all of the things that needs to go into a construction and into a building through just basically a PDF reader, it's not going to do much for you. So creating a digital platform that allows a common user to comfortably navigate, making buttons very accessible and this is what you need to do to confirm that this is where this goes, just making that really big. Is that difference between just the conversion to actually, I would say, evolving.
Yeah, and it's also sort of the intelligence layer that you add on to that too, right? So our sort of, obviously we're digitizing, the process, the platform, the process through our platform, but it's also, we're trying to do it through intelligent automation, and so, it's really important to add those layers of intelligence. So as we develop the platform, it'll go through its first iteration, its second iteration, its third iteration, as we work out, all the bugs that inevitably, that we're going to need to work out. We'll continue to create those additional layers of automation, data translation, machine learning, all of the stuff that makes it into a really intelligent platform.
Yeah, and that's like you mentioned about the digital twin. In a digital twin in a hospital would really come into its own if you had digital strings attached to the medical equipment, say, for instance. And then you could start to understand how groups of medical equipment, work together, whether they work well, whether they don't, how often they need to be sort of recalibrated, how often they break down, how often parts need to be replaced, over the life cycle. And that will inform your buying decisions, especially.
Bidirectional, David.
Bidirectional, there you go. A novel concept for construction. Information going that and that way.
Yeah, so David's referring, I was really excited because the UK Construction Buzz just launched an article talking about is the digital twin going to be able to provide the answers to achieving this net zero emissions goal that the world is taking on. And that means having information go into the construction of the building, but also having a conduit out so that the building can report back post-construction where to find efficiencies. And I'm so excited that this article came out because our construction process is so analog and these goals are so big. And if we're not leveraging technology to build in those efficiencies and those tools, then I honestly don't see how we would get to any of those.
Yeah, that's a great point, actually.
You're
after this, can you send us that article?
But you're absolutely correct. And if we are, as an industry, construction and buildings, if we are responsible for 40%, by most estimates, of CO2 emissions globally, we will have to demonstrate that we are operating within a certain within a certain level, within a certain bandwidth, as it were. We will have to demonstrate, if we want to be awarded contracts, if we're builders, contractors, whoever, that we can deliver projects as close to net zero as possible. And in order to do that, then we're going to have the digital infrastructure to support that, to demonstrate, okay, this is how much our supply chain is generating, this is how much our on-site activities are generating, this is how much waste we're generating, and so on. So the days of sort of taking a bit of wood, chopping the bit off you need and using that and then chucking the rest in the burn pile or skipping it, they will be over. You simply won't be allowed to do that.
Agreed. And it was a really exciting article, and they were, and then you can kind of dive a little deeper about what other information about this building matters. And I thought it was, so in the US, in Texas, there was a huge cold front that came in.
Yeah.
And the houses there don't have insulation because they didn't need it. And it was just this kind of like aha moment that was, oh, actually, our entire energy consumption would be improved if we did have this alternate standard. But with an analog system, and making those changes is very difficult. Yeah. And you have to inspire the construction industry and the people in the construction industry to want that.
I mean, things came to a total standstill there for a while, didn't they, in Texas? It was a few days of just, yeah.
Yeah, and then we've got the pandemic that's slowing down the shipping of resources so that the home construction is slowing. That's all something that, is replicated in the commercial and then, large scale building environment. So it's really, there's been a lot of pressure points that have been instigated by this pandemic that are highlighting. And one of them, I think, is air quality, and especially in hospitals, is that, we're starting to pay attention to what's the filtration system in our schools? What's the filtration system in our hospitals? What's that fresh air turnover? And that's where leveraging technology takes this, unstructured data and actually helps you change things.
Yeah, no, that's true.
And the regulators, I think, will fall into line as well. And rather than you having, to wade through 300 pages of standards and text, I think that things will be much easier if the regulations themselves are actually delivered in multi-formats. So delivered as a model, delivered as something that you can import into Revit, something that has geometric data and properties and attributes attached to it, so that you have it there. It would take a lot of the uncertainty out of that. Hopefully.
Hopefully we'll get there. But I will say what's interesting is that I wanted to share with the listeners that Atlas London, you're a startup and you have gone through the startup process. And I thought it'd be really great if the listeners got a little, what'd you learn? Where could you have done better? Let us have it.
Right, we're going to write a book about what not to do when you're a startup.
And it's going to be a pretty long book.
Yeah, every mistake we've made along the way. No, I mean, in the spirit of being sort of as upfront as possible, I completely understand now. I never used to get this. People used to say to me, oh, investors really want to invest in founders that have founded companies before. And I'd always be like, okay, but yeah, I get that. I get that a lot now, because as founders, you really sort of tend to fall in love with your solution, right? And this is your baby. This is, it's like a diamond that you're sort of, chipping away at, and you're looking to see where the best shine is. And, and you pivot left, you pivot right, you have eureka moments, and you really sort of get into sort of obviously what you're doing. You have a lot invested in it in every way. And that's wonderful. I think founders need to do that. You need to be in love with your solution. But I think, as first-time founders, we were a little too focused on that, too focused on sort of that versus, okay, what are the benefits of this? What is the return of investment, for our customers on this? Not investors, but for the customers themselves, when you're selling, the software to them, what are they going to get out of it? And why is it, for every dollar that they spend on this, how many dollars are they going to save, type thing. And once we started to focus a little bit more on that, first of all, the ROIs were a lot bigger than we even thought, that they were. And so, that was a really happy outcome. And then, the discussions that we started to have with customers were getting to be a lot more productive. And that's not to say that you shouldn't focus on the big picture and, your solution and what you're doing. But, I just sort of get now, if you're not a first-time founder, you probably look at everything from a sort of multifaceted view earlier in the process than we did.
Mm-hmm.
What were the first steps that you took to find some outside capital? And what were your partnerships that you developed?
So I would say in the last few years, we have focused on developing mostly partnerships with our software partners. And that's been really great, because that's been a real validation of both our concept and our vision, and that's been amazing. I mean, so far we are bootstrapped, and so we've put in, we've invested our own money into the company, but we are speaking to different investors. We now have a pretty exciting prospect with a strategic customer / investor who has a pipeline of projects that they're building in sub-Saharan Africa, 14 of them. And I think they found us, which was kind of nice. And they said, we saw what you guys are doing, can we have a conversation? And that really, David and their CEO really clicked, and they've had, some amazing, really productive conversations. And, this is in some ways, it's a sort of pinch me moment, because it's almost the perfect profile for us. It's someone who understands the built environment, someone who understands tech very well, and, has access to capital. And, that is a pretty happy marriage all in all. And
someone who understands this, they're sophisticated. So they built many projects before, and they understand precisely, how our system can help reduce RFIs, can reduce change orders, can streamline the supply chain. They see the benefits of that very, very clearly. So you're not sort of having to explain something from scratch. They already get it.
Yeah. So, we'll see how, that pans out, but it's looking pretty good, pretty exciting. And, it's nice to sort of, interact with a customer who really gets it. And David's always said, our sort of investor, our capital, will come from someone with this sort of profile who really gets the benefits of what it is that we're doing.
Well, right, because you got to follow the source of the pain.
Yeah, exactly.
So when we first became friends, David and I, I'm focused on the pain points in residential construction. David had already gone through all of them in the healthcare construction. So now you've got a strategic partner customer that has seen all the inefficiencies and really is recognizing how do I say this politely? It's like there's 30% of capital that goes into construction is wasted.
Yeah.
So, I've heard a lot of people saying oh, what's the ROI on digital adoption? And I'm like, well, seeing as how we're throwing away 30% of our capital, isn't, a 10% improvement, a significant improvement? Yeah. And that's sort of what kills me about what the ROI is. And when you're going to outside the construction industry or, a startup and you're trying to raise, I think that there is assumptions made about the construction industry that are actually very false, and you'll have to explain that. And my example was I went on a trail ride, and the young woman who was guiding us said, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm like, "Oh, digital construction." She's like, "What's that?" I'm like, "Well, we build a structure in a digital environment before field construction." She's like, "Oh, well, yeah, I would imagine that's what everybody does." Well, seeing how every other industry that needs to manufacture a product is doing that, I can understand why that assumption.
I love the look on your face there. That's so funny.
That's pain.
Yeah. You don't know whether to be happy or unhappy by that comment. I don't know.
But it is interesting to go to outside of the industry investors and try to explain just how analog the construction industry is.
Yeah, and that's one part of it. The inefficiencies and the length of time and the cost, the cost overspends are one part of it. The other part, is the frustration. If you've been on a big job and it's gone to arbitration and then it's gone into litigation, and you're spending, millions and millions of dollars on the dispute resolution process, and that really, really brings it home. These things drag on for years. And all of a sudden, as a member of the site team, a lot of your time is taken up sorting out these problems, and this is what we've done in construction. We've never actually addressed the inefficiencies. All we've done is built this really fancy sort of dispute resolution environment to deal with the fallout of the inefficiencies. We haven't actually.
The problems are so big.
Yeah.
What's wrong in a building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a car accident, There's not a forensic audit, and to do that type of thing on a building. Yeah, I totally agree. It's just it's such a large perspective that it's difficult to even digest it.
And I don't know. I mean, if you've, in your experience with what you're doing, if you've had a lot of pushback from within the industry, or but people like to do things the way things have always been done, and they may sort of intellectually realize on an intellectual level that, yeah, that does make more sense, or that is a good idea. But at the end of the day, no one's ever going to get fired for choosing to do things the way that they've always done it. Right. But the sort of, the, what do you call it? I guess people who break out, what do you call that?
Well, there's the risk reward.
Innovative.
Yeah. It's hard to get people to jump on that bandwagon, I think. And we're like you said, we're a startup, and sort of, even though we think what we're doing is innovative and exciting, and definitely the way the industry is going and is the way that hospitals will be built in the future, there's no doubt in that. That's why it's good to develop these partnerships with sort of big enterprise, because they give you the credibility, right? And so that's I think what startups have to do too, is sort of have that marrying of the startup world with the enterprise world, wherever that sort of fits.
And one of the issues with digitization, one of the biggest challenges is adoption. Like Maha says, actually getting people to use the software. And that will come in at a contractual level. So if you can convince the client, the one that's actually putting up the money and who's going to save the money, I don't want to say enforce adoption, but certainly encourage adoption.
No, but yeah, well, because they say, what needs to be adopted on their construction projects. So
and this is what's going to help. And to support that, in the first few projects that we're doing, we're putting together a team that we will then seed into the client's team to understand their workflows, their KPIs, and to build those workflows into the software, so that they're not getting too far away from what they're doing already. If you take a look at some of the design software, I mean, it scares people to death. When you look at it, you've got this sort of, you've got the palette of all of these different, buttons and lights and knobs and whatnot, and it's just. I think as an industry, we could get a lot better at sort of streamlining the interfaces so that it doesn't scare people, and so that they're much more willing to adopt it.
Yeah, and we call those people our ICAS crew. So that, we put together an ICAS crew that's led by David, that sort of goes in there and doesn't say to the customer, right, you need to chuck out everything the way you normally do it, but sort of understand the way they run their projects, what software they use, and sort of define the functional and non-functional requirements that they'd like to see in the platform. And I think that really does go a long way in enforcing adoption of this. And, to the customer that we're talking to right now, David's sort of expertise in the industry and his ability to sort of help formulate a project methodology, if you will, that can be rolled out across this portfolio of hospitals that they're building, is hugely valuable to them. And, that's what they said to us. They love that. They love that David will be able to help, advise as to, right, this is what needs to be modularized. This is what needs to be systemized, in order to make our platform actually more efficient and be able, instead of tracking 100 things, track 10 things, you know.
And they'll have my mobile number as well, by the way.
I'm coming to sub-Saharan Africa.
And I'm going to call you, and you're going to come along.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll be there in a minute.
They're going to need houses as well.
They're going to need a lot of houses.
Well, it was funny because when I was first talking about this platform and how incredible it was, one of my favorite moments that I had with David and you, Maha, was, why are you doing the most complicated building in the most complicated area? And of course, Maha was like, that's the whole point. It's the most needed. And I'm like, well, what if you use it in houses in the US? And you're like, well, I want to stick to, like, you know, solving problems that are like really significant in underdeveloped areas. And I'm like, oh, how about we just categorize the US as an actual
That's right. I remember. I thought that was hilarious. That was so funny.
I look at, like, you know, some deserts in you know, inner cities of our Rochester, New York, and say, we just build a house using this platform. Because I think that we have kind of glazed over the fact that we've got a mobile platform that has generative design built into it. So you can say how many rooms you need, what type of rooms those are, and, you know, what the specifications are for, you know, hallway width, and basically build an entire building in this platform, and then have it kick out the information that you need to your project team, and then keep the project team connected. And I thought that is what every construction site needs.
Yeah, no, I mean, our go-to-market is healthcare, because, you know, that's where our experience is. But certainly, I mean, we really do believe that if you can do this for healthcare, it will be very much easier to roll it out in other sectors, you know, for the built environment.
Yeah, and it's logical for healthcare as well. Your room adjacencies are very well prescribed in healthcare. The rooms that you need in any department that you have are very well prescribed. So it actually lends itself to generative design.
And to digitization.
To digitization, because the parameters are very clear. So there's not a great deal that's down to preference.
Yeah, so I guess there's less choice, you know, than residential or commercial.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've noticed about the construction tech environment is that when you're looking at some of the design solutions, they are not easy to use. If anybody, I mean, Revit was not adopted by the industry very quickly, and some would say it's still not, because it's a difficult platform to learn. Many would say it's not intuitive. But then when you moved into, like, the construction and tech that was field construction solutions, like, how do I manage my day-to-day operations more efficiently? Those platforms I found very user-friendly, very intuitive, and they put a lot of effort into making sure that those in the field that are accustomed to an analog management are now doing it in a platform that makes it easier, more fun, more efficient. And so it drives people to use it. And what I loved about the platform that you had created was that it integrated both of those. The design piece was as intuitive to use as the actual management piece. And that was kind of the first, like, yes, why don't we do this for everything?
No, exactly. I mean, it's again, you know, David, as what you were saying earlier, Lindsay, David is very focused on making sure that the sort of dashboards and, you know, sort of the user interface is something that will be very easy, you know, to use, not with, you know, millions of submenus and all of that. And, you know, I think it's important to also understand, when looking at the Atlas platform, we're not sort of reinventing the wheel here when it comes to point solutions, right? We're not trying to make up something better than Revit, or something better than Unify, or better than, you know, P6. You know, we're taking sort of the best in class solutions that are out there, integrating them. But it's not just an integration process, because as you well know, there are different data formats, different file exchanges involved, and sort of they don't really speak to each other. And so it's that's why that glue and translation layer, so that sort of system-wide language that we've created, the data schema and file exchange structure that makes everything talk together, basically speak the same language. And so, Yeah, so I think sometimes people think we're just sort of integrating software. That's what we're doing, or we're trying to reinvent sort of point solutions. And, we're not doing either of those things.
It is. And if people wanted to see more about Atlas London, where do they go? How do they get in touch with you? How do they hear more about this very cool platform?
They just look up David on LinkedIn. He's got a really nice profile picture. No,
we've got a website as well.
He's the pretty one.
We've got a website. It's got the videos on it.
Our website's
got a lot of information. You can sort of you can get the gist of what we do.
Yeah, we've got a lot of videos actually on our website, but it's www.atlascontech. That's for construction tech.com, atlascontech.com. And then I think on LinkedIn it's just Atlas Group London is if you do a search for that.
And if someone wants to reach out to you on LinkedIn or any other social platform, how do they find you?
You mean our handle? I don't know what our handle is on LinkedIn. Just Maha Harper, David Harper. Sorry,
David Harper.
I don't know. Is there like a special handle that we're supposed to know?
Well, if you have Twitter or Instagram, or if you're putting
Twitter, I do have that. 1 second, I can tell you.
What's funny is that my UK friends are all very Twitter. And I don't even have a Twitter account for my company.
We never used to have one, but then somebody said to me, you need to get one of these. I was like, all right, okay.
Well, I like because you've been able to you've done a lot since we've met.
Yeah.
And, even when we were talking about as founders, how do you separate yourself out from this is your baby to what one of the interviewees that Lance, our other co-host, was saying is like, no, it's your asset. Like, stop looking at it like a baby. Like, you need to be way more critical about this idea than you would about your child.
No, that's true. Actually, that's very true.
Very, very true.
I never thought about that, but that is true.
Yeah. So how do you make this asset as efficient and effective to the end user and your customer? And that's, I would say, every founder's Achilles heel.
Yeah, or have, be a founder with your spouse, and then because then you're never afraid to tell each other actually what you think, and just say that is a terrible idea or that is brilliant.
And the customers keep you honest as well. Once you've had a few meetings with a customer, you really get down to the nitty-gritty. You really understand what issues they've had on previous projects. The ones that they anticipate, the ones that they can't tolerate anymore. So that sort of governs
what you're building,
what you're actually building. You might have the sort of the broad, let's say, functionality tied down, but there are these very minute exchanges, bidirectional exchanges that just don't happen, and all of a sudden they can mushroom into something which is affecting your job.
No, and sometimes like David and I will have, discussions about sort of which way we should go on X, Y, and Z. And at the end of the day, after we have our sort of, 5-hour discussions about it, it doesn't matter what I think actually. And it doesn't really matter what you think. It's what the customer wants at the end of the day. And that will sort of govern sort of how this is done.
Yeah.
This is why social media is helpful, is because you can start getting that feedback with like driving to you and hearing the thoughts on that. And I thought that that was an aspect of the social media presence that I didn't predict, is just having that like direct line of, I get so many accolades and it feels so good saying, we're doing something really cool. I've been in a bucket and my head's been down like trying to solve this problem.
I love that. I've got our Twitter handle is at Atlas Group Lund 1. I don't know why that is. LOND 1. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you. And it's been wonderful having you on, and I've really enjoyed building our friendship and really geeking out to what construction. And I can say that the one thing you can always trust about your customer in the construction industry is they will not filter for feelings. Yeah. They'll give you those hard truths that this sucks.
Yeah.
You're like, absolutely correct.
I don't like where that button is. I'm never going to use it.
Lindsay, you're definitely one of our favorite people to talk to within the industry. So thank you so much for having us. As usual, time flies so fast.
It does. And if you would like to hear, Inside the Firm is now on YouTube, and you can subscribe for your chance to win Inside the Firm merch. And then anybody listening, if you enjoyed the show, leave a 5-star review. It really does help us reach a broader audience. And if you're looking to find more on Inside the Firm content, follow us on LinkedIn or Facebook at Inside the Firm, or on Instagram at ITF Podcast. And I just wanted to thank you again for joining us.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Speak soon. Bye.
Bye.